Go.
Hey guys, and welcome back to the Autonomy podcast, and we are here full to the rafters with a full team here, me, Declan and Hym, gracing the stage once again after our success of our last one, and just generally we've been just talking shit for the last hour with our team meeting, so we thought we'd just jump on here and do another podcast. We've got some exciting stuff coming up this weekend, and we want to share that with you. So Hym, what have we got going on?
Other than, it didn't come home this weekend. So we've got to get that out of the bag right now, man. It did not come back to yard. But this weekend we have the first edition, first installment, first season of the Autonomy seminar, I guess we could call it. So we're going to run through we've got Rena who's coming on with the guest speaking. Obviously you're going to be speaking on client check-ins, and I'm going to be running through some training stuff. And then at the end of it, we're also going to be doing some practical element just to have a bit of fun on the gym floor as well. So that's going to be very, very exciting.
Yeah, it's going to be really cool. I mean, alongside that, in the morning, we're going to do a photo shoot with people that are coming along. So, we have this big thing with photo shoots, and a lot within the industry, whether you're outside the industry or not, and you've never been it before, you think of this photo shoot as this thing where you have to get in the best possible shape, and you have to be in most amazing physical condition to be able to do so. But I think for us, there's a combination of that, and like there will be some people bringing the heat when it comes to being absolutely diced. But also there'll be people that will be celebrating 5-6 months of maintaining their weight after their diet and still be in incredible shape. And I don't think we see that enough within the industry, not only from people taking photo shoots when they're not in peak condition, but also enough of people celebrating that they've held their weight off for such a long period of time. So we've all done photo shoots here. Dec, what was your experience of your shoot?
So, I've done a kind of a handful over the years, and from varying off the back of a competition to doing one a little bit more steadily over a 6 month as opposed to your classic 12 weeks. And I've also done one where I was holding a lot higher body fat percentage, so kind of sat around maybe a stone heavier than my better condition. So a bit of a mixed bag, but all of them just as valuable, to be fair. I've enjoyed them all been a great experience. I think, as you just mentioned then, the ones where you are actually more sat around maintenance weight is a really good one for confidence. Everyone talks about wanting to be in a position where they can hold a good weight all year round. So I think it's again another perfect opportunity to actually be able to celebrate that, because as you said there, not many people get to the point where they actually maintain their good results long term. So why wouldn't you want to do a photo shoot to celebrate that?
Yeah. Did you guys have that moment where you looked in the photo for the first time after you dragged your ass there because you're probably still fucking hanging from the low calories? You drag yourself there, and then you I don't know if I look great, I don't know if I'm looking the way I want to. Then you take the picture and you look in the camera, and then you're like, wow, that's me. Did you guys have that moment?
I think mine's a bit messed up. I think when you go through this process, I think after your first diet or first photo shoot or whatever you want to call it, your definition of lean, it just changes forever, right? So you're where you get to, you're like, okay, that's now condition, and you're like, okay, well, maybe next time I'm going to get leaner. And it's like this spiral of you constantly, this is not good enough kind of thing as well. So I definitely have that competitive side of it where, and that's probably why I fell into bodybuilding, to be fair. I started off with a photo shoot and it's like, oh, I look good, but I'm like, okay, well, I want to get leaner. And now it's like, I'm the leanest I've ever been, a week out, but I'm still in my head, I'm still like, damn, am I lean enough kind of thing. And yeah, I think your definition of lean and condition definitely gets warped over time when it comes to these things. For sure. I don't know if you feel in that same way.
I mean, I think, I don't know, it definitely does become harder. Once, especially if you go in and you kind of set the tone, it becomes harder over time to try and beat that. But I guess if you go in there with a different mindset in terms of what you're looking to get from that photo shoot, you know, like I said, especially if you go in there from a maintenance point of view, you're not going there to be your leanest, you're going there to appreciate where you're at right now, and you know, get better at feeling more comfortable with that kind of longer term condition. But I think, like, you know, if you've got a good photographer, like, I think those are the guys who do really well at kind of getting you excited, because at the time you might feel not necessarily insecure, but you're kind of like you said, you are a little bit uneased as to whether you are in your best condition. But it's not until those guys catch you in the right kind of lighting and the right picture, and they show you the photos, and you're like sick. So when they do that at the beginning of the photo shoot, after your first couple of shots, all of a sudden you start to relax, you start to embrace it and enjoy it a lot more, because, you know, the camera doesn't lie.
No, it doesn't. As I always used to get told on, like, when you're looking like at EastEnders or Coronation Street, like the camera adds £10 to you, especially depending on what you're wearing. So you always have to, if you're wanting, there's obviously two definitions of a photo shoot. One is to like appreciate it and look good, and that's great, and that's the capturing the moment of you being happy and you being content and maintaining. But then there's that competitive side that Hym speaks about, where it's like, I want to better myself every single time. It's not for everybody, but for some people, that's like the drive. And like, you're always like, I just need to get leaner than I did last time. You know, the camera's going to do X, Y, and Z, so I need to go harder. I need to get this vein popping out, or I need to get this abdomen popping out, or maybe I need to even get the darker spray tan to highlight certain areas. So it's such a mind game. But I think for the most part, those that will do it on Saturday for their first time or even their second time will take a lot from it, from the ability to savor the moments. And like for me, you know, I did 2 before I was really, really happy. And that was just because of, on that day, you are reminded of your failures during the dieting phase. So you're reminded of like, oh, you had this on this day, and that's kind of, you know, stopped why you didn't lose as much as you're supposed to lose. And you are reminded of those past failures, because at the end of the day, you are with your top off in front of the camera. Maybe other people are around too. So you do get that. And for me, those first 2 were every single time was a reminder of how much I should have digged a little bit better, or I should have been more resilient, or, you know, I learned about, you know, what it felt like to be a little bit like gutted, because I never really felt like proper gutted before in anything, where I was like, I should have done better. In other things like maths tests or GCSEs, I've done, well, it doesn't matter now. But it was the first time in my life when I was like, oh shit, I should have done better in that one. And then the next one I got better, and I beat it by 6 or 7 kilos in terms of leanness, and I was bigger. But I still wasn't happy with how I acted during the 20 weeks of dieting. So then the third one came along. I was like, I'm not having that feeling happen to me ever again on that day. So then I went as hard as I could, as best as I could. And still there was some times when I was like, fuck, like wasn't perfect over the 20 weeks, but I was damn near as perfect as I've ever been before. So that definitely showed on that particular day. But photo shoots of those types, they go one or two ways. And hopefully for most people, the competitive ones will take that upon themselves to, in 12 months or 18 months time, try and beat that. Or the ones that are, you know, in the maintenance phase will appreciate what they've got at this moment in time and use that as a springboard for their next exercise adventure, whether it is, you know, getting stronger, or maybe they're doing a photo shoot in 2 years time just to hold themselves accountable again to being in the same shape. They're all useful tools when you use them.
Yeah, definitely. I think they're all useful tools. And also, like, it's not necessarily like it is, you always want to do better than what you did last time round. But I think, like, especially when you have a decent amount of time between, everyone obviously always goes there for the fat loss perspective. But then when you go away, you invest in a longer period of time of building muscle, building strength, to go back then and see the differences, not only from a lean, like how much leaner you look, but also from the areas that you've improved from a physique aspect, because you've spent a decent amount of time probably being uncomfortable for a while, putting on weight, putting on muscle mass. So like you said, there's definitely a photo shoot for every different area, really.
It's just a story, isn't it? Like, it's your own story unfolding, and you'll look back at the pictures, and sure, someone else might look back and look at them as this absolute thing, but for you, it's more, you know, the story that's been told and unfolded throughout there. No one else apart from yourself, and maybe your loved ones, are going to know kind of what you had to endure to get to that point. And I think it's important that no matter kind of how you look, for that photo shoot, it's about celebrating, you know, what you've succeeded within, whether it's 12, 15, 20 weeks, a year, you know, all the hard work that you've put into that moment. And it's your own photos. It's not, I think a lot of the photographers, of course, it's part of their business to post these amazing, images of people, and but even if you're not that shredded, veins on the abs kind of look, you can still celebrate it because it's your story, it's your photos and how you looked, and no one can really take that away from you. You can be, you could have been 120 kilos and you've gone down to 80 kilos, and yeah, you might not have that finished product as the veins of the abs, but you've done a hell of a big job. And if that's kind of where you want to take it, and that's where you're happy with, then you can do those photos. And I think it's easy to look on the outset and be like, shit, I'm not that lean and I need to look like that for that photo shoot. It just so happens that they posted those, right? And a different photographer might take different pictures, lifestyle, wedding pictures, whatever, right? And there's no rules to this game. It's just your pictures and you celebrating your own successes and unfolding your own stories, right?
Yeah, it's a really good way to put it. When the photo shoot gets booked and stuff like that, how do you think that the target or the impending goal of the shoot really affects people's psychology when it comes to achieving goals?
Well, I think you've already mentioned a bit about it already in terms of like not wanting to let yourself down. Like I've had this conversation with a few clients who've had their photo shoots booked, and they'll be out on these social events with their friends and stuff like that. And everybody always talks about peer pressure or temptation, but the fact of the matter is that those friends or those work colleagues don't have a photo shoot. Do you know what I mean? They don't have that goal. They're not going to be the ones stood there with their top off or in their sports top and shorts in front of a camera. That's on you. So I think once you put that in place, it's exciting because it's more than just a number you're working towards. Because like you said, it's ultimately like a celebration of all your hard work, but it puts that added bit of pressure because you effectively want to be at your best. You don't want to get to that photo shoot and wish and hoped that you had done the things that you didn't. And like I said, a big area of that is just knowing that it's your own goal, it's your journey, it's nobody else's, and you're the one who's going to be lonely in front of that camera at the end of the day. So you want to be feeling at your best.
It's a celebration. Bring your wife. But yeah, I think definitely going on that point, for sure, it adds that extra bit of accountability, the extra pressure. I think in the beginning you could a lot of times you could say, look, yeah, I'm going to do this photo shoot, but until that day that you book it, it's like, okay, I really need to turn it up again, I really need to show up. And it just sometimes that pressure can make people crumble, but more often than not, it adds that extra layer of accountability because they want their pictures to look really, really good, right? They want to, push that a little bit harder, which maybe if that wasn't there, they may not have done. And I think another big part of it is, moving away. So this is a large part of autonomy is obviously the after, right? So it's not just the photo shoot, is not just the photo shoot, right, to celebrate, but it's also the celebration of the closure, the finish of, these last 20 weeks or however many weeks that you've really pushed hard to get to this day, rather than just be like, okay, well, tomorrow I'm just going to reverse diet and I'm going to bring my calories up. Really having a day where it's like, I succeeded. I've done this. I've got some memories now. I can look back and always think, this was, maybe a dark place in my life where my structure, maybe you broke up with your girlfriend, whatever triggered you to start. Your health was bad. And now I've succeeded. And this is the image that reminds me of all the things that I've gone through. And I've prevailed through. And once that's done, I can always look back on that and remember those times that I've succeeded. And then, but now is the start of my new life and the new beginnings of whatever that I'm gonna go and do moving forward, and forgetting about all maybe the negative side of things. That's super deep, but
yeah, no, but that's exactly what, like, that's why we want this podcast right out, because this is like, it's not just the end point of like you're not finished once you do a shoot. Like actually, for the most part, coming out of a shoot or coming out of a diet is infinitely harder than anything else that you've ever had to do. But the problem is for most people is that 90% of people have, I don't know what the percentage was, but there was like they ask who, like, how many people are on a diet now in the UK. It's like 90% or 85% of all the UK like trying to diet at one time, right? How many of those have succeeded? Like, this will probably be the first ever time, if you get to the shoot day or you get to the end date of what you're doing, this will probably be the first time that you've ever succeeded with a diet to the position where you are happy. And once you create that, that's a different entity compared to losing 5 kilos, then gaining it back again, or just losing 5 kilos and being happy, or like not even being happy, just being like, I don't want to go anymore, or life gets in the way, or whatever it is. So, you've probably never ever got to this point before in your life where you're completely happy with your physique, and you've done this amazing achievement of climbing Mount Everest and getting to the photo shoot. And then you end up having to do the next part out of slightly fear, because you don't want to lose all the results, but ultimately out of necessity. Like, we've seen it far too many times where the rebound or the gain after your photo shoot, or even just a diet, becomes way worse than when they first started in the first place. And everything that is here is to make that avoidable, and it is avoidable completely. So when you are considering, and this for people that are either during the photo shoot prep, or they're just starting out and they want to see what all the fuss is about, keep a one eye or 1 foot forwards always towards that after the shoot phase, because that's where you're going to be able to say, even if you lost 10, even if you lost 20, even if you lost 50 kilos, it doesn't get easier from that day onwards. Actually, in fact, it gets harder initially for the first part anyway, because you're coming out of a phase of where you could say, I'm just dieting, so you can just say no to all of the things, or try to a position of where there's no reason why you can't say yes. You've achieved the goals. You're in amazing shape. You're living your best life. You've probably got more confidence. You're probably going on more dates. If you're a guy or a girl, single girl or guy, you're probably happier in your relationships. And that's when things start to slip. The standards that got you there also then slip. So it's really important that the shoot is that figurehead to celebrate, to reflect, and to basically align you to that next goal, which is the next 6 months are pretty much you understanding how to live a lifestyle, and that they can go very, very wrong very, very quickly if it's not something that you work with someone who knows what they're talking about to go through.
Yeah, so there's nothing there now holding you back, right?
Mm.
Whereas before it was like, well, I'm single vision. I know I need to climb up to Everest, right? But then once you get there, it's like, I'm there now.
Yeah.
Well, go on. What do I do up here? But it's about, now you have to climb back down, and that route is going to be more rough, because now it's just like, fuck, let me just make it home. You know what I mean? And before, when you're like, okay, I'm going to climb, it's easy, right? Because you're motivated, you want to see what's up there. But what's down there, right? So the motivation to stay adherent is going to be so much harder. And then on top of that, depending on how hard you've pushed hormonally, things are going to change, and you may be, at your most hungry, right? And all those habits that you've created, or the bad habits that you almost created when you diet, right? You're much more, accurate with your food. You're weighing everything, and you're almost too obsessive with these numbers, right? These are things that you don't really want to have when you move out of that fat loss phase. Like, they serve a purpose for you to drop body fat, like obviously the accuracy, but that life that you live in a fat loss phase, isn't going to be the same as when you go into maintenance, right? And I think that's really, really important to know, and that stops that perpetual, yo-yo kind of cycle.
It's also those that, like Nate had already mentioned already. It's also like those new standards, those standards that you've been building over the past several months to get into great shape, ready for this photo shoot. Those habits that you've been building. This is the new you. Like, this structure and routine that you have in place, this new active lifestyle that you lead. Like, for sure, the transition is to kind of ease off of some of those elements, back off of the nutrition, or like you said, the strictness or the amount of output, but the fundamentals that's got you to this position is there for good. And like, it's the ability to now hold yourself to these new standards long term, that's the real difficult part, because people think it's like some automatic switch. Like once you're done, you hit the photo shoot, it's like, I can just, go back to where I was before and still keep my results. It's like, no, no, no. This is you now. Like you have to live this. You don't have, like, it sounds really extreme when you say like you have to live this life now. Like the whole goal is to build that flexibility over time, but it's transitioning into a completely different phase. And I think that's something which needs to kind of remind clients or those who go through that kind of fat loss phase, is that you've got these new standards now. You have to keep to those.
Yeah, it's definitely like learning to adapt that plan to you, right? So obviously we give you some degree of structure, to give you some degree of plan, but you have to finesse that to your life to make it autonomous, to make it easy for yourself to do. Because if you're constantly having to exert willpower to do something, it's never going to last forever, right? And I think to a degree, when you're losing fat, there is going to be much more restriction, but you can't have that forever, right? At some point you need to ease off that restriction a little bit, and it needs to still mold to your life, and that routine, those behaviors, that's why it has to be behaviors and the structure of your life. Because if it's not, and it's something that you're always having to require you mental fortitude to try to do it, it's never going to last forever. Because at some point you're going to be like, I don't really want to do this anymore. There'll be a point where maybe your life's busy, maybe you had a kid or whatever, and it's like, well, I don't want to do it. Or even you've achieved the goal now, and it's like, well, I don't want to do that anymore. And that's when people rebound hard, right? Is when they see the plan as the plan to get them to this goal, but they don't see it as, okay, well, these are the principles. Let's look at it on the broader scale, and let's encourage and carry on these behaviors. And how can I fine tune it? How can I make it so that it's like another Monday, rather than having to really have to think about it. Of course, in the beginning, whenever you're restraining yourself, there is going to be a degree of kickback, and you're going to have to push yourself hard to and maybe use a little bit of willpower. But over time, this thing should come a bit more autonomous, and this thing should come a little bit more self-sufficient and easier, because you're doing it more regularly, right? And it becomes more habitual and a routine. But if it never does become that, then you're fighting a lost cause.
Yeah. So the word standard is always thrown around. I don't actually, it's not thrown around enough, because of how, like, I guess how firm it is when it comes to, like, when you say, look, you've got to have better standards, or you've got to have these type of standards, but ultimately, like Hym was saying, is you want to rid yourself of the complete mind games that come through trying to be something you actually don't want to be. Like, when they're standards, they just get done. Like, I know people that have these standards where they'll have like moisturizer routines, or they'll wash their face every night, or they'll brush the teeth every single day, and they're just standards for them that they get done irrespective of anything else. They will get done 99.9 or 90% of the time, which is all you really need. And those standards can then relay back to steps, or structure of your week, or meal prep, or tracking of calories, or going to the gym at a specific time. I've got friends that will never tell you what time they go to the gym, because they already know that they go every single time at the same day, same time. Don't even need to tell you the time. They just have a routine that is their standard. They'll wake up, they'll go for a walk, they'll do X, Y, and Z, then they'll go to the gym, then they'll work, then they'll do X, Y, and Z, because they're their standards for their day. And you have to turn these mental games into standards. But if you don't realize that that's what they are, then you may be thinking that they're a means to an end towards that goal. This is just a plan, as Hym said. Like, if you view them as standards as opposed to a plan to get you towards one specific goal, you'll see it as a lifestyle. And that's what lifestyle really means. It means taking the practices of something into a normal routine, whatever the goal, and the only the amounts really change. So, if you have a standard in the dieting phase, sure, different things will be able to happen during the muscle building phase or lifestyle phase, But in really and truly, if you want to stay stable, want to stay mentally sound, the structure of routines stay very similar or adaptable to where you are at that moment in time. But the only difference is that the calories are different, or the amount of flexibility that you have with your food choices are different. How many steps you choose to do are different, but they're still standards to do steps. Like doing steps is a standard. Doing nutrition tracking in some way, shape, or form is a standard. Weighing your body weight is a standard. Going to the gym 3 to 4 times a week, most of the time, is a standard. And once you gravitate towards those, as opposed to plan, I'm doing this for the plan, then the transition when you move from photo shoot or just end goal into it, or that point of goal into that lifestyle goal, you'll have very little issues with the transformation mentally. It's only those that do something for a certain period of time and then they're scared to lose it so that they do something next. But in the meantime, between that shoot or that end date of the diet to the next 14 days, they lose all the things that they gained because eventually they bought into it being a plan as opposed to a standard.
Yeah, it's that on or off switch kind of thing, right? That all or nothing. It's like, oh, I'm either on the diet or I'm off. Whereas if it's really a lifestyle, it's never on or off. It's a dimmer switch, right? So when you're really, really busy, or maybe you've just had a kid, or you've got COVID or whatever, it's not necessarily like, okay, I'm off, I can't do this, so fuck it, let's go. I'm going to turn it down a little bit. I can't do 10,000 steps, so instead I'm going to do what I can, which is 5, right? And because of you've got a kid or whatever, you turn that dimmer switch down. So yeah, you might not be making as much progress as maybe you could have if you did 7 days of dieting, for example, or did 10,000 steps, but you're still moving in the right direction, or you're at least staying weight neutral, right? And then when life allows you and things clear up a bit, you can crank that dimmer switch up a little bit more and push on a bit harder. But I think a lot of times people see it as black or white. It's all or nothing, right? And it's like, well, I'm either on the plan or I'm not. And that's kind of the whole point of autonomy. That's the whole point of us being here, is to get people away from that and teach them it doesn't have to be black or white. There is a neutral part of it. And that, I think, to build a lifestyle, that is a really, really important mentality to have.
It's people getting like to the point as well, like the biggest difference is when they actually embrace it during the fat loss process or during their transformation journey, are the ones who, like, they don't have these things in their life initially, but when you start to work with them again to individualize it and to build it into their lifestyle, all of a sudden they're like, oh man, like I love working out on a Saturday morning. Like it feels great to start my weekend like that. Or those who are like, oh, I love going out for my evening walks now. It's really nice to kind of finish the working day, go out for my steps, or, at the back end of my dinner and allow it to digest. And before I go to bed, I love having my eggs like first thing in the morning. Like when people start to talk like that, you can tell it's something they enjoy and it's something they're kind of embracing into their lifestyle. And therefore 9 times out of 10, they're going to carry that forward, after the photo shoot, after the fat loss phase. And again, like sometimes that is in regards to that kind of trial and improvement and individualization, is you might work something with someone initially and they're like, these morning walks just aren't working for me. And if they're not working now, they're not going to work after the photo shoot. So then that's when you work with a client to adjust these things and find something which does in their lifestyle. And like I said, gets to the point where they really start to enjoy it, then the chances are that's going to stay with them, whether they're in a fat loss phase, a maintenance phase, or a muscle building phase.
Yeah, I think that's massive, man. The falling in love with the process, rather than kind of dreading it each day. Like you have to take pride and of ticking those boxes and winning the day, right? Every single day, taking it step by step and being like, well, today, I managed to hit 10,000 steps. I managed to follow my nutrition. I managed to go out and train. Those 3 little mini wins that you've managed to achieve every single day, and you fall in love with that process, and the results will eventually come because you're focusing on that rather than just the outcome or just for the end goal. Is like, I'm just doing this to get here, and then you end up dreading these things. Whereas if you really do love doing these things, and it may not be enjoyable in the beginning, but once you start to do it a little bit more and it becomes a bit more habitual, and you're like, okay, cool, this actually feels really good, or I'm lifting more, I'm progressing, you know, you get these mini wins and you get that success. And arguably, I would say you're much more happier with the journey, and you don't mind it takes however long it needs to take, right? And you don't mind doing it for so long because you enjoy that process. And at some point, it's inevitable that you're going to get that goal, right? Because I see it as, you know, if you're saving money every single day, there's absolutely no way that you can be in debt by the end of the week, right?
Yep. I think that's a really good way to finish that off on that point. I think, as you can see, the photo shoot is one of those things that create magnificent joy, and lots of reflection and achievement. But then the afterwards is where the real work, lifestyle, mentally, behaviorally, really does start. So, you know, that's where the Living with Autonomy standards comes in. That's where autonomy really, you know, finds its voice, and that's what we're here to do. So, if you enjoyed this podcast, give us a like, a share, a subscribe, and ultimately share it with people that really, really need it. So, apart from that, guys, have a lovely week.